Okay, so hello and welcome back to this week's live stream. I'm Gordon Morse, your natural English coach, and it's time once again for me to answer the questions that you have. Unfortunately, the last few videos had to be pre-recorded, but now I'm back with live streams, and I hope that I can continue with live streams for the foreseeable future, although there might be times when there will have to be some pre-recorded videos as well. Okay, so our first question of the day. The question is, when I was talking to a friend, he thought I said heat instead of hit. What's wrong with my pronunciation? So you obviously just heard me pronounce those two words, heat and hit, differently. However, as some of you who have been watching my videos and live streams for a while know, the short I is one of the most difficult pronunciation areas to master. So, the natural short I sound in English. A lot of times in Romaji and other English loanwords, the E character is used, which of course is more of a long E or I sound, E, when in fact we want to use the I sound in English. So here's a side view of a face. You can see the nose, the lips, the teeth, and also all the things that are happening back in here. So I just wanted to show you where the sound happens, or where you can feel the sound of I and I. I and I. If we're making the Japanese I, he sound, it's happening in the middle of your tongue and in the middle of your mouth. You can feel it on the top of your mouth and in the middle of your tongue. He. But the sound that we want, the natural short I sound, happens more towards the front of your mouth. I. It kind of happens right behind the teeth and at the front or the tip of the tongue. So here are some minimal pairs that are good practice for using the short I sound. So on the left we have feet, but we want to say fit on the right. So it's very important that these two words sound different because they're two different words, and if you pronounce them both the same, then people will get confused. So we want to practice feet and fit. Feet and fit. Then the next one, peak and pick. Peak and pick. See how when I'm making the E sound, my mouth goes a little bit wider than when I say pick. Peak, pick. Now try feel and fill. Feel and fill, right? And lastly, we have heat and hit. Heat and hit. It's really useful to practice these minimal pairs a little bit each day, because if you practice a little bit each day, then slowly over time you will become better at making those different sounds. All right, question 2. I know literally means something that really happens, but someone told me it means the opposite. What does it really mean? So this is a very confusing phrase for native speakers also. There are kind of slightly two different ways that you will hear people pronounce the word literally. So you hear me saying literally with 4 sounds, but some people will also say literally with 3 sounds. Literally and literally. I personally use them both. A lot of people use them both. Either one is totally fine. So we have the idea of literally and figuratively. Both of those are pretty big words, right? So literally is something that happens or will happen in real life. So here, let's see. I literally am holding a pencil, right? Literally holding a pencil. It's actually happening in real life. Figuratively is using emphasis, that word meaning strong feelings, to describe a similar feeling or situation. So here is the tricky part. In English, when people are speaking casually, there are some people who will use literally to mean figuratively. It's a little bit strange. So you have to really understand the context of a sentence to tell when people are meaning literally when they say literally, and when people mean literally in a not literal sense. Hopefully that's not too confusing. Believe me, it's probably confusing even to people who speak natural English. But it's a kind of slang thing. It's a very casual thing. So I'm going to show you some examples of how this works. So I have 3 sentences here, and in each one literally has a different feeling or a different meaning. So here's the first sentence. I needed to get to a toilet. I was literally gonna explode. So, based on the meaning of this sentence, do you think that literally is being used in a literal way, or is literally being used in a figurative way, meaning it's not actually happening, but it's just being used to show a similar strong feeling? So hopefully it's not being used in an actual literal sense. You will ideally, hopefully, not actually explode if you don't use the toilet, but it's being used to emphasize, to show a very strong feeling that this is what's happening. It's very important, it's very strong feeling. Our next sentence, I literally had no idea what to tell him. This can kind of go either way. This just really emphasizes, again, it's using emphasis to show that you just have no idea. You don't have any idea of what to say, right? And this could be true. You just can't think of anything. There's just nothing in your head. So this one kind of goes both ways. It can be used for emphasis to really add some extra feeling to it, or it can be just saying, I really just can't think of anything, right? And our last sentence here, the chair literally collapsed when I was sitting in it. If we're using literally here, that means that this actually happened. This really happened. This person was sitting in a chair and then it actually truly just fell apart. When you're using literally like this, it means this really happened. So as you can see, these 3 sentences show you 3 different ways that literally is used in casual English. And it is important to know the distinction, but it's very hard to learn. So don't worry too much about understanding it completely right now. The main thing is to know that this happens a lot. All right, here's our third question. What are some polite ways of telling a person you're going to be late meeting them? So the answer will depend on your relationship to the person you're talking to. But as always, in many different languages, polite phrases are longer than casual ones. So it depends on if you're telling someone like your boss or some sort of stranger that you will be late, versus telling a friend or a family member that you will be late. So if you're using a polite form and you're telling someone in a polite way, you can say something like, sorry, I'm going to be about 10 minutes late. Or you can say, it looks like I'm going to be about half an hour late. Very sorry for the delay. So here you can see 2 things. Number 1 is an apology to the person. Even if it's not your fault that you're late, sometimes it's just a good feeling to apologize. The person is maybe expecting it, so that it just makes things easier between you. And then the next part is what we call the ETA, or the estimated time of arrival. So it's telling the person when they can expect you now, right? For the first one, I'm going to be about 10 minutes late. So it's telling you that, or it's telling the other person that you should be there in 10 minutes. And the other one, the lower one, I'm going to be about half an hour late. So for any sort of communication of telling someone you will be late, it's important to add an apology and an ETA, an estimated time of arrival. Now here are some phrases that you will see if you're saying something more casually to a friend or a family member. Heads up, I'm going to be about 10 minutes late. If you watched a few live streams ago, then you will you'll remember the phrase heads up. Or you can say, running 20 minutes late, sorry. So as you can see, the first one doesn't include a apology, which, depends on who you're talking to again, but it's not strictly necessary. But again, sometimes it's just nice to add an ETA, tell someone how long it will be before you're there. But in general, if you're telling or talking to someone like this, it's better to, or if you're telling someone or talking to someone like this, polite phrases and explanations will be longer than casual ones. So, what does it mean when something is suitable for you? Can you put it in a suit? Not quite. So, suitable means that something is a good match for you. If something suits you, it fits your character or works well with you or what you're doing. So, the phrase suitable can be used for people or objects. It has a feeling of satisfaction or something that is just so. It doesn't mean that something is perfect for you. It means that something works very well. There might be other things that are better or more perfect for you, but when we say that something is suitable for you, it means that it's a good match. So here's a couple of examples. I think that job is suitable for him. He has a good eye for detail. So this person has a job that matches him very well because he has a good eye for detail, and that is what the job requires. Our second sentence, that paint color is suitable for this room. It makes things brighter in here. So see how the first sentence talks about a person and the second sentence talks about an object or a non-person. So the paint color is suitable. It matches the room very well or is a good fit for the room. So with suitable, you can use it for a lot of different things. You can use it for clothes, or you can use it for a lifestyle, hobbies, pretty much anything can be suitable for someone or something, a good match. All right, and our last question. Let's try that again. When I try to listen to people speaking English casually, I can't understand longer sentences. How can I improve my listening skills? So, longer sentences are a problem for two major reasons. Number one, they usually contain more complex grammar. And also, when you're listening to longer sentences, you're trying to understand more words at one time. So, this has also been my experience of learning Japanese, is that when someone says a shorter phrase or a shorter sentence, I'm a lot more likely to understand more of it or all of it. But when somebody is saying a longer sentence, or when I'm reading a longer sentence in Japanese, it's much harder for me to understand the entire meaning. And it's probably the same way for you in English as well. So, a very important thing is learning the building blocks of English sentences. This is what I do to get better at Japanese as well. And I think it's a very important approach if you really want to get better at conversational English, both speaking and listening. So, no matter how long or how complex a sentence is, you can break it down into smaller and smaller chunks trying to understand a whole sentence all at once is sometimes just too difficult. But with English at least, every single sentence that is, well, not every single sentence, but most sentences can be broken down into a subject, a verb, and sometimes an object, depending on what the sentence is. So for example, I ran. I, subject, ran, verb. Or we can say, I ran to the store. I, subject, ran, verb, and to the store is our object. And from there, you can make the sentence really a lot more complex by adding subordinate clauses or subjunctive clauses and stuff like that. Those are all a little bit more complex, but the idea is that you can break them down and understand their meaning separately and then put them all together at the end. So if you want a really complex sentence from I went to the store, I could say something like, I was gonna go to the store yesterday, but it was raining, so then I thought of going to the store today unless I can drive there earlier. That's a very long sentence, right? But you can actually break it down into different meanings and then understand them all separately and then put them all together. So a really useful way of practicing listening is to listen to the form of a person's speech, not just every single detail. If you can recognize familiar forms, there's less information to think about overall. So with English, a lot of sentences start with the subject, I, you, he, she, it, right? If you always know that the subject is going to start first, then you don't have to worry too much. Your brain doesn't have to worry about finding the subject of a sentence. You know where it is. The verb can be a little bit more difficult because it depends on where it is. But in Japanese, the verb, the main verb of the sentence, is usually at the end, so it's easier to find. So it's really useful to try and recognize familiar patterns at the beginning and the end of sentences. Once you become familiar with those, you don't have to think about them as much and you don't have to worry about them. So then your brain can focus on figuring out the rest of the sentence more easily. All right, and finally, here's a question for you this week. What is most suitable for you when it comes to jobs, hobbies, or clothes? So what is the best match for you? I recommend recording your answer on your phone or your computer. Then you can listen back to yourself from earlier, and that way you can hear your errors and pronunciation and record yourself again and again to practice. All right, thanks for watching, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, please think of liking and sharing and subscribing as well, because all those things will help me make more content in the future. And if you ever have a question about English, feel free to ask it in the chat during the live stream, or you can also leave a comment on one of the videos from before. I will be able to see it and then correct your English or answer your question at any time. Also, if you would like to take a free English assessment of your natural conversation ability, just click down there at the website, and then I will see it and I will be able to evaluate it for you, and it's totally free. All right, so good job today, and I will see you next week.